No question about it. And, one other topic that we teased in the open of this segment that I want to get into with you guys, Tom, I want to get your take on it first, is the Lane Kiffin saga. I think it was the most discussed situation across sports this weekend, watching the drama, starting with the Egg Bowl on Friday when Ole Miss beat Mississippi State. And then that was an early game. I think it was the noon game on Friday. And then just that's all you heard about Friday night, Saturday, and even bled into Sunday with Lane Kiffin, the head coach at Ole Miss at the time, meeting with the athletic director. We know how it now ended up. It ended up with Lane Kiffin leaving the Ole Miss Rebels. He's going to be the new head coach at LSU, one of the most prestigious head coaching jobs in all of college sports. It was reported that Kiffin's going to sign a 7-year, $91 million contract. That's a ton of money, obviously $13 million a year. So, Tom, what's kind of your general reaction to Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss to go coach LSU, obviously a conference rival, and we know how brutal those SEC football rivalries are. And then the second part of it is if you were the athletic director of Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin said publicly he wanted to coach in the college football playoff. Is that something under consideration, or is that just kind of a hard and fast no, knowing that the guy who wants to coach your team on the biggest stage in the college football playoff would be leaving for a conference rival as soon as the playoff ends, or as soon as Ole Miss gets eliminated?
Yeah, well, first of all, for me, that'd be a no chance. You're not coaching our team. But this was interesting. And look, I know college football. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the SEC as far as all the mechanics around it. But when I look at the job at Mississippi and I look at the job at LSU, I don't see that much of a gap between the two. I think 20 years ago, there definitely was a gap just between resources and the amount of talent that those schools could bring in. But I just see where Ole Miss is right now with their resources, with the amount of top players that Lane Kiffin has recruited there. I mean, Mississippi had 15 players drafted in the last 3 years in the NFL draft. So they had 15 players drafted. LSU had 19. So it's not that big of a difference. So I didn't see a huge gap between the two. I thought Ole Miss is a great job. And, why would you leave that to go to LSU? But again, I'm not an SEC expert. And like we said before, everybody maybe needs something different, something new to new challenge. And you can be somewhere for too long. But in this situation, I mean, it got messy. There's really no way for it not to be messy. The calendar in the NCAA, it needs to be fixed. But in reality, it's never going to get fixed until there's one commissioner of NCAA football, which right now there's too many conferences, there's too many conference commissioners, too many ADs, too many head coaches, too many other agendas. And that's why we kind of are where we are with where the calendar is. And there's never going to be a good time to leave your school if you're a successful head coach. As you guys remember, this is way back when Bill Frieder was the head basketball coach at Michigan, and he left them right before the tournament. And he wanted to coach Michigan through the tournament. Bo Schembechler was the AD, and he said, a Michigan man will coach Michigan. And I 100% agree with them. I don't see any way where you could have Lane Kiffin, who's going to a school in your own conference, who's a huge rival, and for him to stay and coach the team through the playoffs. And it may sound great, but in the end, himself and his assistants that are leaving, there's too much other things going on with having two jobs that they wouldn't be able to have their full attention on Mississippi. There's no way. You've got family implications as far as where are we going to live, where are my kids going to go to school in Baton Rouge, and then you've got all the recruiting that LSU is doing right now, and you'd have coaches looking at both jobs at the same time. So I just don't see any possible way that staff could stay. And to be honest with you, Ole Miss right now, I mean, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder going into the playoff. They may play better right now with their head coach gone, and they want to show some people that, hey, our head coach just left us right before the playoff. We're going to show them what we can do. So, but yeah, it's college coaches probably at every level, certainly football and basketball, leaving to go to another school when you're not let go, it's going to be a messy situation. This one certainly got there. But in the end, this is big time college football. This is the way it works.
And Tom, I view the decision to let him coach across like 3 platforms. I think there's a competitive, ethical, and logistical challenge that you have to kind of really grasp. And you referenced that some of the calendar issues here are at play. These are the logistics. So, reading here, but this Wednesday or we're recording on Tuesday. We're going to air this on Thursday. So the Wednesday in between is the day that the early signing period for high school kids. This is a reason why you need to have your head coach in place. That's why some of these decisions, these coaching carousel decisions are made right now. You have to have your head coach in place to be able to entice that high school kid to sign. They need to know who the coach will be. Secondarily, the transfer portal opens on December 9th through the 28th. That's the first opening of the transfer portal. You have to have your head coach in place for those things. But those dates coincide with, the end of the regular season in between the conference championships for that early signing period. Then the portal is open during some of those championship weeks in the beginning of the playoff period. It just seems so misaligned with keeping continuity and allowing coaches to finish out the season. I'm not excusing what Lane Kiffin did, what Ole Miss did, what LSU did, but the reality is this decision probably had to be made right now in order for the teams to move forward with the NCAA rules. Second is the ethical thing that you talked about, Tom, which is how could you possibly have somebody who is committed to another team, let alone one in your own conference, go and coach your team? I think the same thing's happening. The head coach at Tulane, I believe, is going to Florida. Now, they're not in the same conference. There's a little bit less conflict. He is going to coach the team through the playoffs. But the last thing is the competitive component. What do you owe the kids? What do you owe the fans? Ole Miss has not won a national championship in quite some time. They have a chance to win it this year. You have to assess, are we better served to win it with the coaching staff we have intact or without? Because it's not, as you pointed out, Tom, it's not just Lane Kiffin leaving. My understanding is he's probably going to take the vast majority of their offensive coaches with him. And so now there's a kind of a decimation of that coaching staff. How much can the kids rally around that and potentially play even better versus how much are you totally compromising these kids, this fan base, chance to do something they haven't done in a long time, which is play for, compete for, and ultimately potentially win a national championship.
Yeah, it's been like over 50 years, probably maybe even 60 years. And you work, he built that program up and you finally get to the pinnacle. You have a chance to play for a national championship and you decide that, you want to move on, but that's his prerogative. But yeah, this situation is just different. If you look at the head coach of James Madison, Bob Chesney, he took the job with UCLA. I know he's going to stay and coach out through the Sun Belt championship game, and they have a chance to actually make the playoff. And I think they're talking about he may stay through the playoff, but to me, that's a little bit different. You're going from James Madison to UCLA, but you're going from Ole Miss to LSU. That's just a totally different animal. But like I think Mississippi may play at a higher level right now because they're going to have a little extra on their shoulder, for this playoffs. But this is big time college football. This is where it is at some point, and it's going to happen eventually. There's going to have to be one commissioner of football and set one set of rules and policies, and you work on from there. I have no idea who that person is going to be, though. Won't be me, I can tell you that.
No, great points, Tom. That actually absolutely needs to happen because the fact that Lane Kiffin, who I believe was under contract at Ole Miss through 2031, is able to do this is a flaw.
Yeah, you can just
system,
walk.
right?
I mean, can you imagine if I'm the GM of the Chargers and we're going to the playoffs and my head coach says, you know what? I've got an offer from the Raiders. They're an iconic franchise. They got a worldwide fan base. I'm going to take the Raider job, but I want to coach the Chargers through the playoffs. I mean, it's nonsensical. It would never happen. So at some point, NCAA, even with player contracts now with NIL money, that they can just get up and walk. At some point, they're going to have to be a lot more guardrails in place for players and coaches when they're going to change teams.
I completely agree because right now on both fronts, the coaching front and the players front, it's kind of the Wild West. And even talking to coaches of current college programs after a good season, in some respects, guys, it's harder for them because they say, well, everybody wants to get paid now. All the players are coming saying, where's my money? And that's what it takes to keep the group together in today's NIL era with, as Tom pointed out, the lack of guardrails